talking about this target recruitment concept, tying in your store with your local automotive shop program in a high school system somewhere for quite some time. Some of you participated, I know, as have some of the other dealers around our 5-state area. And in particular, I began a few months ago to be aware, actually last summer, of a particular success story that we were having out in Laredo, Texas. Laredo, Texas isn't exactly mainstream America, and so I didn't really spend a lot of time listening to some of the things that the DSM in that area was telling me, but one day all of a sudden in my mail came a packet of photographs that absolutely captivated my attention. And at that point I started asking questions, and some of the answers that I got absolutely were amazing. And I thought, no, that can't really be that good. And it turns out that here's an example of a dealer, a service manager, that went looking for an automotive program and people, talent, people who have a desire to make a living in our industry and the skills to pursue it if properly trained. And what he uncovered in his own backyard was an absolute gold mine. And I don't know who was more surprised, the school or the dealer. And as the results of all of this finally rippled into my technical center, and then particularly when this package of photographs showed up, I realized that it was time to pay attention. And I'd like to set just a little bit of the stage here this morning for what you're about to see. And we're not going to watch all of it because it ran quite lengthy. But the school system that this next gentleman represents is in the absolute worst imaginable part of the community of Laredo. The school system is right in the heart of the barrio, 2 miles from the Mexican border. And the poverty is very obvious in the photographs that were sent into my office. And yet, right in the middle of gang wars, drug lords, illegal immigration, and massive poverty is one of the most magnificent school buildings you've ever seen, obviously built with taxpayer dollars, yet with an enormous chain link fence all the way around it, 10 feet high with barbed wire on the top. I thought it was a prison. It's a high school. In that high school is an automotive program that is having some incredible results. And it's all because of a dynamic little gentleman named Manuel Cerda. I think that the real secret to Mr. Cerda's success, other than his own personal ability, is that he has lit a fire under the community of Laredo. His support system is, in my experience, unique. Yet this morning I think he can give us an example of what is out there, what may be available, and what could possibly happen to you in your own community if you begin to look into this concept of a feeder school and target recruitment. So without a lot of further conversation on my part, at least not here, let's look at him there.
And out there they have no motivation, no idea, no objectives, no and they make it through 4 years of school that way. And when we suddenly go look
Can everybody hear? No. Can you get the house lights back up? Let's do the volume up.
qualified in any way, who already have proven that they not only have the motivation and the talent, but are working hard for an end objective. I think that's what we need to do. That's what we mean when we talk about target recruitment. They're not going to come and find us. We pretty much know that already. We're going to have to go and find them. Now, as we bring together to you this morning a lot of talent, as I've mentioned before, some of the people that are sitting in the room here, and I haven't bothered to go around and introduce everybody because it simply would take too long. Some of the talent that we have here in the room this morning and some of the speakers that are going to share their knowledge with you today are absolutely outstanding. And I've got to tell you about this one little story. About a year ago, Bob Franklin sent me a number of photographs and a report, and he and I have been talking very diligently about target recruitment and how do we do this. And he had started going out in some of your communities and scouting out school systems. And Those of you that know Bob know why I call him Bulldog. And once he gets started on something, he never lets go. And here comes this incredible set of photographs and some information about a school system that Bob is just bubbling about. And I have to tell you that this school system is situated in a community that would appear to have seen its share of sorrows and disappointments. It's not the wealthy side of town. It's a community that probably has seen an awful lot of things go on that they wish it hadn't. And maybe the dreams of many of their children have not been realized. And yet right in the middle of this community is one of the most incredible school buildings you've ever seen. Absolutely new, modern, and beautiful. More importantly, in that school system, in that building, is an automotive program that is absolutely incredible. And all Bob could do was wax enthusiasm about what he had found out about this program. And I have to admit, he got me a little bit curious, and he said, we got to help this guy. We got to help this system. They are producing some incredible youngsters. The community is supporting this like nothing I've found anywhere else. It shows that it can happen. It shows what can be done. Is there anything you can think of that we can do to help? And I said, well, I don't know, give me a few days. Yeah, I'd probably, find some shop manuals and things like that. Let me go snoop around in the storeroom back there. Some of you have been in the training center in Houston, and you know some of the resources that we have. In 1979, Toyota first introduced the new car called Supra, and it was our first ever Toyota to have port fuel injection, electronic fuel injection. And at the time that car came out, they sent me a brand new engine in a crate. Thousands of dollars worth of motor, complete with all of the harnesses. The only thing that was missing was the fuel pump and the computer. And I'm not sure what they had in mind, but there it sat. And I had several brand new Supras to use in the training, so I had no need for the engine. It sat there in the crate gathering dust for about 3 years, and I finally told the parts department, I don't need this. Why don't you see if you can sell it to somebody? So they took the crate over to the warehouse, and it sat there for a couple more years. And one day they called me up and they said, that engine lists for $9,000 complete like that with everything hooked up to it. Nobody's going to buy that engine. What do you want to do with it? And I said, well, for heaven's sakes, don't throw it away. Send it back. And I decided that we were not going to waste that engine. So when I had time, I found some old angle iron and casters and odds and ends, and we built a little framework and we mounted that engine and got the necessary pieces and fired it up and made it run. And a lot of you have seen it sitting in the training center. It's been there for years. It's a brand new motor. Probably has less than 50 hours on it. It's just older technology. One of the interesting things that has happened in the ensuing years is that, as always happens with our training center, visiting Japanese Toyota engineers come through, and after a while you get used to it. They're little short gentlemen with black hair combed right straight back, wearing a three-piece suit, and they're born with a 35mm Nikon right here. And they take pictures of everything. And here they are snapping all these pictures of this somewhat old Toyota engine on a stand. And I thought, well, that can't be very fascinating. That engine isn't even in production anymore. It was the old 4ME. And we've replaced it with something more modern. It's still probably the best teaching tool I've ever had, and that's why we use it every day. And I forgot all about it, but they didn't. They went back to Japan, and about 2 years later, a crate came in the freight about 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide. And we knocked the plywood loose and looked inside, and here's this incredible framework on wheels. And we rolled it out. It contains a complete new Celica engine, automatic transmission, power steering, all of the electronics, gauges on everything, and it lights up and it runs. They looked at mine and said, well, if that's what they want, let's do it right. Cost me $10,500 for that little puppy. I could have bought a new Tercel for that at that time. And all of a sudden, my engine on a stand looked not only rather humble, but really obsolete. Still did the job, but I didn't need it anymore. And an idea popped in the back of my head, and I called Bob and I said, this engine might be just really neat for whatever they're trying to do in that school system that we're excited about. Do you think they can use it? Would they like to have it? I'd be more than happy to donate it to them. He said, well, I don't know. He said, I'll call him and find out. He got back to me a couple of days later and said, yeah. He said, they'd really like to have it. And I said, well, Bob, I think this was what, July? It was last summer. I said, I've got, a quiet period when we don't have too many classes scheduled, and I'd be more than happy to bring it down there. I said, you understand, Laredo, Texas is a long ways, and I don't know too many people other than the dealer people down there. I said, when are you going to be there the next time? So he told me, and I said, how about I bring the engine down the night before, and I'll meet you down there, and we'll just take it out the next day. Hey, it's summertime. Will anybody be there to help me? I can't lift this thing out of the pickup truck by myself. Yeah, he said, I think we can probably work something out. So the day before we had agreed to meet, we loaded in the training center this engine in the back of the T100, which promptly put the frame on the bumper stops. You Toyota people understand the humor of that. And I drove to Laredo, Texas with this Supra fuel-injected engine. Now, I had a funny feeling about it. It hadn't been used for a while. So before I pulled out, when I checked it, and sure enough, it had 6-month-old gasoline in it. So I cleaned it out, put fresh fuel in it, grabbed the new battery, fired it up, and it ran, and it sounded good. And I was pretty pleased with that. And got down there, and Bob put me up in the Holiday Inn, and the service manager, Michael Powell, and his lovely wife took us out to dinner. We had an enjoyable evening, and I thought, well, hey, this is great. This is a long, hard trip just to deliver an engine and turn around and go right back. But at least we're having a pleasant evening together, and I'm enjoying myself tremendously. And next morning, Bob said, not only make sure you're wearing a light shirt and a tie today, there might be somebody out there at the school that you'd like to meet. And I didn't really give it much thought, but I generally am wearing a shirt and a tie, when I'm on the job. So we got in the truck together, and we drove out there. And I've got to tell you that it still scares me. It concerns me deeply that when we drive up to one of our public schools, that there has to be a huge fence all the way around the outside of that campus. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. Most of you didn't either, but our children today are. And we had to go around the block a couple of times to find a gate that was open because it was obviously summertime and the campus programs were shut down. And I began to worry that, maybe there's somebody there, maybe there's not. I don't know how Bob and I are going to get this engine out of this pickup truck. And we pulled back to where Bob said the automotive department was and backed up to a door. And one of the most unique experiences of my life began. The door went up, 5 or 6 huge people came out, the engine disappeared out of the back of my T100, and I walked into one of the most pleasant experiences I think I've ever had. I don't know how many people were in the room that day, 50, 75, I lost count after a while, but we had one of the most incredible receptions that I think you could possibly have hoped for. And the school system was there. This is summertime. The band was there. The drill squad in their new uniforms was there. The flag bearers in their military uniforms were there. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle. And we had about an hour-long presentation and a very formal ceremony to present this engine to this automotive program. Bankers, lawyers, doctors, Border Patrol, Indian chiefs. I mean, we had people from the community like I've never seen before there to say thank you to Toyota for what I actually consider to be a rather old and obsolete engine. The fact it was brand new had very little to do with it. We were made to feel welcome in a spectacular way. Local television stations showed up. I don't know how many reporters I ended up talking to, and I was overwhelmed. And as I told the group as I addressed them, I sure was glad that I did wear a white shirt and a tie that day. I expected to drop that engine off and be gone, and instead it turned into be a very enjoyable presentation. The automotive program that is taking place in that particular school system is unique to almost anything I've ever seen. The instructor has respect. And in many school systems today, they don't. 40 years ago, I remember in school when the teachers had a problem with a disciplined student, they put him back in the shops. When they had a slow learner that couldn't keep up in the math classes, they put him back in the shops. And the counselor said maybe they could teach him a trade. Put him back there. I suspect as often as not, it was because the wood shop instructor or the automotive instructor was a big stout guy and probably could control this unruly student or something like that. 40 years later, I'm alarmed to find out that the counselors in many school systems are still doing the very same thing. They're not putting a lot of people back there because they're sharp, they're analytical, they're intelligent, they can learn, and we can give them a career making $50,000 or $60,000 a year using their head and using their hands. They're still doing what they did 40 years ago, and it really alarms me. Except for this system, because here's a school system where the students have to apply to get into the program. They have to be approved before they're allowed to become a part of it. And from what we understand, they're banging the doors down trying to get in line to do it. The end result is absolutely predictable. This gentleman is producing usable, employable, tax-paying citizens for the city of Laredo. And I think everybody involved in the program is absolutely astounded and as delighted as Bob and I were. I've never seen or heard of anything like this. And I asked the gentleman at the end of the presentation, I said, good grief, if you would do this, if we get this kind of a reception for an old Toyota engine on a stand, what would you do, for heaven's sakes, if we gave you the whole car? He says, try me. I think I will. But before I do, I'd like to introduce him to you and let him tell you just a little bit about it from his point of view. One of the most dynamic automobile shop instructors I've ever had the privilege of knowing, Manuel Serra. Mr. Serra. Cigarroa High School, Laredo.
Excuse me, this morning I'm very emotional for that fine presentation Mr. Plaintiff. Mr. Paul Franklin, thank you very much for the invitation, sir. I'm very honored to be here with you this morning and share some very wonderful experiences. I mean wonderful experiences. People that didn't believe in our program. We have to prove ourselves. But thank God. And at this time, I want to bring these people that came on their own. My advisory committee from Laredo, Texas. Mr. Garza, our chairman of the board on our advisory committee. Please step forward. Mr. Arturo Garcia. Mr. Javier Gonzalez. I want you to recognize these people. And this is some of our members of our advisory committee. We have 14 members in this advisory committee. Very strong advisory committee. Very strong program. They believe very strongly in our program. We have a very talented young lady, our certified state interpreter, Mrs. Melida J. Casas, which has been with our program for 3 years. Because we have deaf students in our program also, that people didn't believe that they could make it in our program. When I was passing out this information to you this morning, I need to tell you, gentlemen, I get very emotional because we had to prove ourselves very strongly, these people that didn't believe. And it's true. We screen our students, and we have about a lot, I can tell you. We have a list. And I go through the process. It takes time. It takes time. But like I tell my students, when we receive something, they didn't give it to us. We earned it. We work for it. And that's the difference. That's the pride that we have in our department. Everything that we have gotten, we have earned it. And here again this morning, Mr. Oscar Garza, step forward for favor. I'm very proud of these people. They came in this morning, they started to drive to San Antonio at 5 o'clock in the morning. This is the chairman of our advisory committee, Mr. Oscar Garza, Assistant Chief Laredo Sector, which has been with us for 11 years, ever since Cigarroa High School opened its doors. And you know what, gentlemen? They gave us 2 years to survive in that school when we opened those doors. Because I was associated with another school. And everybody that told me, you're moving to that part of town, you're crazy. You're not going to have a job in 2 years. And we've proven those people wrong. That's the best school in Laredo right now that I can say, and I'm not bragging, but I want to invite all of you to visit, if you have a chance, to go to Laredo and visit our department. Second to none, I guarantee. There's a lot of pride there. There's a lot of good kids out there. And we have a lot of parent involvement. The strong supporters from administration, Mr. Vidal Trevino, our superintendent, Mr. Pedro Lara, our principal. And this is a team effort, like you guys are here this morning. This is a team effort, because we don't do it by ourselves. And I take into consideration all those God blessings that God has given us. All those fine young students that are eager to earn an associate's degree, to join the T10 program, to give them the opportunity to prove themselves. And here again, it's a beautiful tradition, and I'm just very honored. I get very emotional, because like I tell you again, we have to prove ourselves. And it's not easy, believe me, when you sometimes deal with a lot of negative people. That's how come I have a lot of good science idea for you to share with me. All this have a reason that I have this science idea. A lot of people didn't have that positive attitude. And we have to prove ourselves. I brought a lot of information, and I mean a lot because this is the system of operation that we have in our department. Yes, we screen our students. I screen my students like a job. And then I tell them, come back tomorrow, and I'll see you at 9:30. Some come back at 8:15 or 9 o'clock and waiting for me. Some don't show up again, but I don't need those kids. The ones that are there early, that's the ones that I'm looking for. And then I interview them again, and I'll see you tomorrow at a certain hour. And I will take the hour, see if they're really interested in the program. I want to share with you some of my shop regulations and student safety pledge that not only the students sign, but the parents get involved also. And I have the support of the parents, and I have the support of the administration, and I have the support of our advisory committee. How else can you go wrong? Then I have the business people, Powell Watson, Mr. Robert Cortez from Laredo, very supportive. And I'm going to mention my advisory committee, because I think they need to be recognized also. Javier Gonzalez from Gonzalez Auto Parts. This gentleman has been very supportive also. He has been with us for 11 years. He's the owner of different stores in Laredo, Eagle Pass, the Valley, Mr. Javier Gonzalez. Then we have Mr. Rogelio Tijerina, Mr. David McCain, Sergio Peña from Paul Young Chevrolet, Mr. Henry Gutierrez, U.S. Treasury Department, retiree, Mr. Luis Martinez, Office Communication System. Then we have the people from Marazón, Fernando Garza, Toribio Ortiz. Then we have Mr. Oscar Garza. Then we have Mr. Matias Arámbula, LISP Public Information. Then we have Mr. Arturo Garcia. Then we have Judge Dan Valdez. All lots of professional people that makes this fine team, gentlemen. As you know, and I repeat to you, it's very hard to make it by yourselves. But when you have all this support, when you have all these people backing you up, and like I tell you again, that's how come I want to recognize these people, because they came on their own at 5 o'clock in the morning to be with me, to share with you the success of our program. 2 months ago, we were in Eagle Pass. We were invited by Eagle Pass, ISD, to share also the success of that program. And I guess I can say I'm sure you have an idea more or less how come I'm so proud to be associated with this district with these fine young people, young students that I have. And just like the sign says, it's not the lesson, it's what they learn that matters. You could give them the best lesson, but if they didn't learn it, to what use we're going to implement it. But here again, and I wish all my students could be here this morning, I guarantee. And the parents, and like Mr. Blake has mentioned, the bankers, the lawyers, Border Patrol, and I mean, wow. And it's true. Mr. Blake mentioned, wow, if you all got these people here on the summertime, because there were no classes then, but what a big surprise, because we have all that support. They didn't get dirty getting that engine down. They didn't even know when the engine was down, to be honest with you. Yes, they didn't even notice. And then we have the honor, and the distinguished honor, I mean to tell you, to honor Mr. Bob Franklin in our Civic and Educational Leaders Hall of Fame, because we have a Hall of Fame also, where we induct our students that excel for perfect attendance, most improved grades, most improved attendance. Kids that the counselors told me, there's no way this kid's gonna make the honor roll. But let me tell you people, that guy has been honor roll ever since he got into that department. Honor roll mentioned, and they didn't believe he could make it. That was a potential dropout as a sophomore. Right now, that gentleman is going to go through a T10 program that Mr. Blake and Mr. Franklin are working with very strongly, with Mr. Sportesa's guidance, and he can vouch for that because he worked for Powell Watson Motors out of Laredo, Texas, part-time. And that's another wonderful story that I can share with you, because the counselors sometimes told me, this kid's not going to amount to much. I'll take him. This is the kind of kids I like to work with. And we made a believer of those people. The gentleman had done the honor roll. He won state. He just got back from Dallas. Perfect score of 100. Engine rebuild, engine motor overhaul. As a team leader, we work with teams to your forward. It's a combination, like I said, a combination of a lot of things. To make the grade in our department, they might be the best technician, but they're going to have to prove themselves being there on time, being polite. And one tradition that I want to share with you this morning, and it's a tradition. I greet my students every morning when they walk in, and if I have visitors in my classroom and the bell rings, I guarantee you, none of them leave until we shake hands and you have a good day, sir. You do have the best day too, and give it your best shot, sir. And I have young ladies too. And I have their students in my program too. But people didn't think they were going to amount to much. And their student won't stay here. He won't stay. He got a 9 on his starter motor overhaul. And you might say, well, starter motor is very simple. Yes. But for that kid, it's a wow, big challenge. You ought to see his parents. You ought to see his grandmother. You ought to see the counselors. Even a deaf interpreter can vouch for that. And as Mr. Blakely was mentioning, that the presentation of that engine, yes, we'll take it. We'll take it because we got use for it. These kids need that. We have an engine from, not one, but several, from General Motors. We received a new vehicle from Detroit. Received another vehicle from Paul Young Chevrolet, General Motors also. And we were promised a car from Toyota, but it hasn't been there yet, but we're waiting for it. I don't know where we're going to put it, but here again, we'll take it. Even if it's banged up or jumped up or whatever, we got use for it. I guarantee you. I'm just very excited and very, very, very honored to be here with you and share these fine experiences with you. Because this is not a front, this is not a put on, this is a fact. And we need to stay together in order for America to stay strong. We need to stay together in order for America to stay strong. You can imagine with all these professional people here, with all this backing. Wow, wow. God bless America, and God bless you too.
How'd you like to have that guy in his program in your backyard? I think that's the whole point. You go digging, sometimes you strike gold. And we've got a dealer way out in the middle of nowhere in Laredo, Texas, that's got gold. He's getting about 2 students a year out of this small auto shop program and scholarshiping them and sending them off to Waco to the T10 program and getting back what he needs to continue being successful in the repair of Toyota products and the other brands that he handles as well. This gentleman that you just saw in the video places 100% of his graduating classes in the Laredo automotive repair industry. The one gentleman that you saw up here in the background is the #2 man in the entire state of Texas for the Border Patrol. And one of the other gentlemen, a gentleman standing there, owns 5 auto parts houses in the Laredo area. The third gentleman is a retired federal judge, and this is his pride and joy, something to keep his retirement years busy. The lady that you saw signing was doing the entire presentation to 3 of her deaf students that were way back in the back of the room, and I think she overwhelmed the whole bunch of us when he put her on the spot and made her explain that as a deaf counselor for that guidance program on that campus, she absolutely, adamantly refused to let any of her young deaf students get into the automotive program because she was convinced they couldn't cope. And when one young man was just as adamant that by cracky he could, and she finally relented, not only did he get into the automotive program and succeed, but as you heard Manuel Cerda say, he just went to the state VICA championships, and the starter that he rebuilt won first place. Now for you and for me and for the people we employ, that doesn't sound like a real big thing, but for someone who has never heard a sound in his life and has been told that he can't accomplish something, it truly is a spectacular thing. And she had to admit that she was wrong and that maybe they'd been overlooking a good potential career for a lot of these people. Sure, he's got limitations. He knew that. Didn't slow him down for a minute. And this presentation went on for a while because this gentleman is quite an orator. And I think it's obvious that English wasn't his first language. He got emotional and occasionally rattled off a few words of Spanish that left everybody, kind of wondering. And we thoroughly enjoyed his presentation, and the gentleman from the Border Patrol got up and made a few comments. And what happened was we got so wrapped up in what these people were saying that we went for 2 straight hours without a break. And I think most everybody in the room was just about in agony, and the lieutenant in the Border Patrol finally said, I can't do anything longer than an hour at a time. We got to take a break. And nobody wanted to. We were enjoying listening to what this gentleman had to say. Now, it makes me really curious, what have you got in your backyard you haven't gone digging for yet? And the needs of our businesses are dependent upon a good supply of talent. And that talent is probably hidden, and we're going to have to go search it out. And this is just intended to give you an idea of one source of it. After this gentleman's presentation was over, we called upon a service manager from one of our bigger stores down in Austin, Texas, and he had a totally different presentation to make. And we're not going to bother to show it to you on TV because it takes too long, but just to simply summarize it, his problem in a city the size of Austin, Texas, you wouldn't expect there'd be a procurement problem. You wouldn't expect there'd be a problem finding a good auto shop program, and you'd be wrong. There are 8 high schools in Austin, Texas. Only one of them has an auto shop program remaining. And we're not exaggerating when we say they are closing down rapidly across the country. If not for lack of funding or lack of interest, then lack of a qualified and, as you just saw, a dedicated instructor. In Laredo, Texas, it's not only necessary to teach automotive technology, this gentleman has to teach people how to be people. He has to teach them respect. He has to teach them that you come to school every day. One of the comments you didn't hear, because it does run quite lengthy, is that many of his students come to school in spite of the fact that they don't get 3 meals a day. And the statement that he made to the group, and I know there were some wet eyes around the room, how do you teach a kid that's hungry? He has problems to deal with that in your communities many of you may not have. You wouldn't expect anything like that in Austin, Texas. What we found in Austin, Texas was not only apathy, but we couldn't even get the right guy on the telephone from the public school system to call us back. They were not interested in any kind of a relationship with a manufacturer. Their automotive program is merely just something that they do. So this service manager, who realized that that wasn't going to get it done, happened to have a master Toyota certified technician who lives in a little rural community about 30 some odd miles outside of Austin, a little town called Dripping Springs. And he happened to be sitting in the stands at a football game one summer night as the Dripping Springs High School was playing another small rural community in Texas schoolboy football. And the conversation that got started included one of the school administrators from the small Dripping Springs school system. And as this service manager bemoaned the fact that he couldn't find an automotive program that wanted to do business with him, that he could help, this person from the school system in Dripping Springs said, well, we're small, but that sounds like something we might be interested in. We've got an FFA program, and we teach the boys how to weld, but that's about it, and there's only a limited amount of agriculture out there, so maybe that's something we ought to be thinking about. So the master technician pursued it and went to see the school board, and they were very skeptical of the whole concept. But they did agree to give the dealer service manager an opportunity to address the next regular meeting of the school board. Gave him a 15-minute window in which to present some ideas. He came out to give them an idea of what target recruitment meant and try to figure out how to do it in 15 minutes, and was still talking at 11:30 at night. And literally has been the means of creating an automotive program in a school system that doesn't have one and has no money to have one. This dealer happens to have 4 different brands of stores in the Austin area. And drawing upon the resources of those stores financially and drawing upon the needs of those stores technically, they have chosen to underwrite this small rural school system, and they have initiated an auto shop program, and there's nothing spectacular about it, but they've managed to find a qualified instructor so far. They are donating some of the things necessary to get the program started. We've involved the T10 campus in Waco, and they've managed to donate a vehicle to them so far. And there are 6 students in this small rural school system in the automotive program at the present time. Not a real auspicious beginning, but all 6 of these youngsters have guaranteed employment next summer in one of these auto dealerships in the Austin, Texas area. And they'll try them out. They did last summer. 4 of them were keepers. 2 of them just, they want something to do, and it wasn't fun after a while, so they dropped out. And of those 4, there is a ferocious competition in this, their senior year in high school, for the 2 T10 scholarships that this dealer is funding to the school in Waco, Texas. Now that's how it works, gentlemen. One way or the other. One dealer dug in his backyard and found gold. The other dealer went out and planted some gold, and now the nuggets are starting to come up. And I don't know but what maybe that's the 2 extremes that we could present to you here today, and certainly your story would be different. But I think that it involves all of us and perhaps a little bit of community service. I know that all of us in that meeting a week ago were absolutely overwhelmed when all of these people that we didn't even know were coming took their own time and their own money and got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to drive from Laredo, Texas to San Antonio just to be there to support their auto shop instructor as he presented himself to Toyota. We were impressed. I wonder how impressed the people in your community will make you if you go looking. It would not break my heart if you became the first major supporter of your local auto shop instructor. And that probably would begin a ricochet that would echo through your entire community. And it doesn't have to be something you do all by yourself. It's something that would be attractive, I'm sure, to not only the other automobile dealerships in your town, but auto parts houses and everybody else that has a need for technical people. We can't let these programs dwindle and die. Our source of talent is going to dry up if they do. And if we don't want them to dwindle and die, then it looks very much like we're going to have to do something about it. So this is meant this morning to give you just a little bit of an insight as to what might be done, what might be possible, and in some areas of the country, what might be going on right now. And I'm quite certain that we could get some equally interesting stories from around this room as well. Some of you have already gotten started on this. Those of you that have not or didn't know anything about it, I would encourage you today to go home with the idea in the back of your mind that you're going to find out if you've got a high school with an auto shop program, and if not, why not? And find out who that instructor is and see what he can use in the way of some good help. I think we can do it. And in turn, then this campus will be able to find the kind of talent that we need to put into the T10 program, and they can take that talent from there and turn it into what you need in order to run your business. I think that's the way it's supposed to work. One of the most amazing parts of my day in San Antonio was walking out at the end of the afternoon after we had completed our workshop and going up the elevator and into my hotel room and flipping on the TV, and the CNN News channel came on, and live I caught our president in the process of signing a bill that's going to fund some programs to see if we can't get education and industry to work together. Now, ain't that amazing? We've been doing it for 8 years very successfully. And I think that it is something whose time has probably come. We're hearing a great deal about it today, and we already have the program in place at this level for you. Now we need your help at your level to make sure that it continues to prosper and succeed. One of the indicators of a good program, and I know that probably a question we would have is, how do we know for sure that we've got a good high school auto shop program? How do we know we've got a good instructor? How do we know that the talent that we need might be coming out of that program at a level that we can begin to work with? Look for involvement in VICA. VICA is an absolute starting point. Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. Toyota is a very big supporter of VICA on a national level, both financially and in other ways as well. And some of you know that a couple of years back, VICA's national championships was held in Tulsa. And Toyota, in a large way, supplied a number of judges for the automotive program. One of our instructors, Ron Reed, was one of the judges in the finals. And it was an exciting thing for all of us to go up there to that big exposition building and literally see hundreds and thousands of healthy, beautiful, excited young people trying to prove that they're the very best in their school or in anybody's school at what they do. I'd not had a chance to be a part of it before, and I was certainly impressed. My boss, Don Cole, went along, and he was really overwhelmed. And we began to realize why VICA is a benchmark. And if youngsters are competitive, if they are trying to prove that they are learning what they need to know, and if they're going to championship levels and winning prizes and proving that they really are learning the things that we need them to know, that's an indicator. That's an indicator of the quality of the program. One of the biggest needs that VICA has at a more local level is for professionals like ourselves to judge some of their local contests. It's not difficult to get judges at the national level or the state level, usually anyway, because there's a lot of free publicity involved. There's television coverage, there's a motivation there. But it has to start at a more local level, and most of the people involved in VICA tell me that as much as your money, they need your time. And that if you would get involved in that, it's a wonderful avenue, not only a reward in the sense that you're helping youngsters to develop a vocation, you're helping them to head in a certain direction, but also that you're beginning to get some idea for the quality of the things that the auto shop programs are able to do. I was amazed at the skill level of some of these youngsters that I observed in some of those contests. Some of them obviously were very new at it. On the other hand, some of them knew an enormous amount. Stuff that you wouldn't expect a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid would know. And yet they did. So as a consequence, that's a good benchmark. That's something to keep in the back of your mind. One of the other things I want to share with you this morning is as we get closer and closer to this lunch hour, I have spent the last 23 years as an instructor for your technicians, literally being a wordsmith. And that means that it's my job to try to find the right words to clearly explain to your employees how complex technical things work. It shouldn't surprise you that I find it very interesting as our language changes and the meanings of what we think words mean change as time goes by. And having been around quite a while and heard a lot of things come and go, anybody talk to a Valley girl lately? It's interesting to note the connotation that somehow seems to have become attached to the word vocational instruction in the last few years. Parents don't like that. The word vocational in many parents' minds somehow is associated with driving a garbage truck, doing menial labor, things that good kids don't need to learn how to do. I'm very concerned about that. I think that may be where this tech prep concept is going to fix some things. The word vocational technical training, or VOTEC, is a very burned-in brand on a educational system that produces some of the most needed people in America today. Yet many people would not consider letting their kid go to a, quote, VOTEC school. And that alarms me a great deal. We may need to quit using that word vocational. If that's what it takes, then so be it. And as youngsters begin their high school education, particularly if the tech prep program comes in place in your community, then they're either going to choose a career in the technical arena or they're going to choose a college prep career, a 4-year degree program. Now, one thing I want to leave absolutely clear in your minds here this morning, there's nothing implied anywhere in the tech prep concept that says that a kid that gets on that track and begins to develop the necessary kinds of science and mathematics training in a technical arena that we need in our industry or other technical industries need so desperately, there's nothing to indicate that at some point as they pursue that career and suddenly find that they're extremely good at it, or that they can go farther than they may have envisioned, that they can't go on and continue a 4-year college degree program. Absolutely nothing would prevent them from doing that. In fact, quite the opposite. I think it's pretty obvious that the next step at some, maybe not too future date, will be the opportunity for some of these T10 people to come out of a 2-year program with a degree in the technology that we need, and then turn right around and continue their education and get the rest of a 4-year college degree program and produce for our industry the talented service managers and the talented automotive instructors and the talented district service managers and all of the other jobs at the professional management level that we enjoy and which is so hard to fill sometimes. I just spent 6 months talking to people trying to find a field technical engineer. I've got one, and you all know how sorely overworked Mr. Connors is. You call that 800 hotline for help, and the Audex system says, well, maybe we'll get back to you, and maybe we won't. Some days he takes 80 phone calls a day through the summer months. No one human being can fix 80 cars a day, even on the telephone. And we have spent a lot of our company's money flying in and interviewing people, trying to find a person to add to my staff to help Mr. Connors do that job. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I want to tell you this morning that I did hire somebody a week ago, and next week he will join my technical division. And that's going to help. It's going to take a while for him to get up to speed, but at the same time, there is hope that eventually when your technicians have a problem and you call down there, you won't get that blasted answering machine, that you'll get one of us. And that certainly would be our ambition. But the job search that we went through to find a person that had the necessary prerequisites to do what we do merely reinforces my concern that we do not seem to have a system out there that is developing the people that we need at any level. So as a consequence, look at T10 as not just a means to get a good apprentice technician. Look at T10 as a means for the future of getting quality people for every need of your dealership, all the way on up to and including your replacement. Some of us are getting to the point where we're starting to look real earnestly at Winnebagos. There will be a date on a calendar when some of us decide to go fishing on a permanent basis. And I think every one of us in this room can probably look back at some point in our career when someone reached out a helping hand, reached down, grabbed us by the bootstraps, and literally yanked our career upward. Maybe it's time to pay our dues. Maybe we can do the same thing for some of these younger people that eventually will replace us. If we can't find people that know what we know, if we can't find people that can take our jobs when our day to retire comes, then there's going to be a tremendous vacuum as us old-timers leave this industry. It's happened to other industries and it's hurt them badly. and it can happen to this one as well. And I think we all understand the baby boom is over. There's less young people to go around than there once was. And there's a lot of other industries out there that would love to have these kids just as much as you and I. We literally are competing for them. One of the most interesting calf scrambles you'll ever watch is this campus's automotive programs recruiting. There's a Nissan program on this campus, there's a Toyota program, there's a Ford program. God forbid there's any more. And we're all competing for the same student body. And it's kind of interesting, you know, these kids are sitting there in the catbird seat just offering themselves to the highest bidder. And it's who interests them the most, who makes the best bid. That sounds like professional sports, doesn't it? And I guess it's getting down to that. We weren't entirely joking this morning. We talked about a signing bonus. I'm sure that's going to be the very next thing. There is a competition, even as we speak, among 3 T10 campuses that I'm familiar with for a youngster that recently won the state VICA championship. They all won it, wouldn't you? And so as a result, as we go looking for talent, we're going to have to start looking in more places than we have in the past. We can't just keep stealing the competitor's guy down the road. We're going to have to grow our own. And part of our goal here today was to make sure that you know that we can do that you can do that, and that this program is here to help you get it done. As the T10 program matures, we now begin to have some ability to redonate some of the surplus from these college-level programs down to the gentlemen like Mr. Serra that so desperately need any kind of help that they can get. But as he very eloquently said to the group in San Antonio, I don't just need your money, I need your support. That's a lot more important in the long run. The ability to go into a school system and prove that, yes, this community needs this talent, this community needs this instructor. These people all too often are underpaid, understaffed, and underappreciated. And I think you and I can probably fix that. And at the same time, from a purely greedy point of view, get the money-making people that we need to go into our dealerships and make us successful and profitable so that we'll be there for them for the future. This is one of the best possible scenarios. It's a win-win situation. Everybody comes out smiling in T10. Now, we've run just about up to lunchtime. I'm not sure exactly what the weather is doing out there right at this moment. It was drizzling the last time I looked. They have lunch laid out for us. It is in another building. We've got a couple of guides back here I'm sure can help us find the way, and I'd like to ask all of you to join us for lunch, and we'll reconvene back in here in about 1 hour. We have some interesting speakers for you this afternoon. I certainly don't want to stand up here all day long. I'd sure like to give you a chance to say something for a change as well. So this afternoon we're going to look at some of the other things that are absolutely pertinent to what we're here talking about this one day. We're going to look at scholarshiping. We're going to look at Pell Grants. We're going to look at other funds that may make it easier than you thought to find the money to get one of these students through one of these college programs. There's a lot of sources out there you may not have known about. You may not have had any reason to know about them until now. In addition to that, we still want to talk about what do you do with a co-op student. He's not just cheap help for the summer. He's there to learn. How do we ensure that that is going on? And who's the right person to put him with? And so some of these things we'll have time to talk about this afternoon as well. In addition to that, then we also have very definitely planned a presentation by Mr. Steve Nelson from our service department at Gulf States Toyota on one of the maybe more important things that you have or haven't heard about, depending upon how many service management training programs you've been through, and that's parameter-based hiring, which ties right in with a lot of the things we're talking about. And most definitely, we want time for a question and answer session so that the things that you're not sure about or the things you'd like to know more about, we have the expertise in this room, I think, to possibly answer the questions for you. At least we'll give it our best shot. It ought to be an interesting afternoon. Why don't we go get something to eat?
Hey, Steve, I'm sorry. Just do like this every once in a while, so you
How about that lunch? we can just all stay awake for a couple more hours. We got this day made. I think you've probably heard about as much of me as you need to today, and my major goal is trying to bring you as much information about a variety of things affecting T10 as we can. The concept of target recruitment, I hope, is reasonably clear in your mind, and some of the avenues that it might pursue. On the other hand, I've been informed that you have not been told everything there is to know about target recruitment, and certainly with the desire in my mind to have a chance to sit down and enjoy myself for the afternoon and let somebody else do the talking, a couple of thoughts that Mr. Archambault would like to convey to you about that subject. Fred?
Thank you, sir. Sir. I want you all to take a look at that box and just visualize it as being Oklahoma State University. Okay, see that box is empty? The only way that that box will get full, or the school will get full, is with you guys' help. Every one of you. Each one of you, and I'm going to try to say this word right, sphere of influence. Okay? Each one of you have areas that you know people, not necessarily people who are coming out of high school. Okay? Milton's got a really good example there at Fort Sale. Guys coming out of the military that are being forced out of jobs that they didn't have any idea that their job was going to disappear. Good candidates for this place. Really good candidates. Buddy's telling us about people that he's got in his VOTEC program. Each one of you have a certain area that you know about, that there is somebody that you could influence to come into our business. Each one of you, I don't know whether it's something in your vocational, in our vocational area, in your church work, in your community work, anything. Just talk about Toyota and T10. That's all you've got to do. They'll pick it up and ask you how you can help them. That's target recruiting at its best. You guys have got the target. They will ask you where that target is. I have people, I was sharing with Buddy and Alan about this. Buddy is from Southeast Campus VOTEC in Tulsa. Alan was influential in getting 2 of his top students advisory council scholarships. From that, I got a call at the house one night. This young man's name's Wesley White. I was trying to think of it a while ago. This is a good friend of my son. Okay? And this kid calls the house and says, how can I get a scholarship to OSU? I want to go to OSU. And this is a friend of my own son's. That's how far and how this thing goes complete circle of what you can do in target recruiting. That's target recruiting at its best. Each one of us have got to be aware of how we can affect our everyday operation with target recruiting. That's the answer, guys. I can't go out and do it. Terry can't go out. Steve can't do it. Jerry can't do it. We've got to have your help. Each one of you could recruit 1 student this year. Y'all have an idea how many people that would put into T10 in 2 years from now, or a year and a half from now, when we're ready for the program? It's 15 people out of here today. That changes the future, guys. The future is every one of us is business. We've got to be about the business of changing the future, because the technology of the car is far exceeding what we can do. We're trying our best to keep up, but it still exceeds what we're capable of doing. These young people come to replace each one of us, as Terry's talked about. We'll do that. And there's nothing any more pleasing to me than to see a T10 student being asked a question by a master technician and comes up with the answer. Each one of you guys in this room has just about got a master tech, but each one is intimidated for some reason by these people that come out of school. Terry talked about the cost a while ago. We've actually estimated what it costs to get a student out of one of your stores, $35,000. That's what these guys' education's worth when they come out of school as a T10 student. No, they're not journeymen, but they're darn sure not entry-level either. They're darn good people. Mark's the only one here in this area that hadn't had a T10 student in District 5. Woodward's not here, they haven't had one. But Woodward's got one coming into school this August. We tried to contact the young man the other day when we was down. Would you? But each one of you have got to be about target recruiting. It needs to be one of the foremost things on your agenda. When you go back, change the area that you live in. Okay? That's all I can ask you. Just keep that up, and all the rest of this stuff come right along with it. Okay? Thank you.
Fred's not kidding. This is last week's automotive news. Some of you have undoubtedly seen it by now, and Toyota prominently is displayed on the front page. And it assures the automotive industry that Toyota is not about, contrary to what some have said, to back off of this 4-year product cycle that has made us as successful as we are, that in the automobile end of the business at least, every 5th year, each model is new all over again. And it also announces that we have 31 new models coming out in the next 3 years. Reckon that means we need to do any technical training? There's no way to know what all that stuff is going to be that is going to come out and innovate the industry all over again. And of course, you know, it's easy to look at high-tech as electronic or ABS or something like that. And high-tech these days is sometimes very low-tech indeed, but something that nobody else has got. And that means that we have to teach your people what it is and how it works. Incidentally, one of the rumors that I've heard recently that I put quite a bit of credibility to is that the new scan tool, which all of you now have, has changed the thinking in some of the engineering circles in Toyota in Japan, and they could not do some things in the past because you didn't have a scan tool with which to diagnose it. Now that they know you do, they are altering some of the engineering and obviously some of the software to make the car work more closely with the capabilities of that tool. There's a strong rumor that for 95 or at the latest 96, all of our ABS computer systems will have serial data and you'll scan ABS complaints on the scan tool. I'm driving one of the new supercharged Previas out there, and there are 10 different new items that you can do on it with the scan tool that you could not do on the Camry when it came out only 6 months earlier. So we're not kidding when we say this technology is moving at a breakneck pace. It truly is. And just the challenge of trying to keep up with it and keep your people trained on it is incredible. We've got a gentleman with us here today who probably is better qualified to answer any of your questions than anyone I know as far as the operation of T10 on this campus is concerned, as far as the needs of the students that are on this campus are concerned, and particularly in one area especially, and I asked him to be ready to cover this with you because there's certain to be some questions pertaining to it, and that is financial assistance. If we have a problem in a T10 program with a particular student, more often than not that problem is related to money. And again, as we said this morning, a lot of these lads don't come from, or these gals, because we've got some very successful ladies in the program, they don't come from a well-to-do background, and money is always going to be a problem somewhere along the line. And although the T10 program has a lot of scholarship funding and it does a lot of good, it can't do the whole job for each individual student. And that means that any other avenues that might be available, such as federal funding or scholarships or loans or grants or things like that, are something that you need to know something about sooner or later. So with a lot of different thoughts in mind and an open forum with which to address them, let me please introduce to you the head of the automotive department here on campus, Mr. Steve Doty.
Thank you. Well, I want to talk about scholarships and money and some of those other kinds of things, but if I could just, let me digress just a minute on a couple of things. I have just a few thoughts maybe on target recruitment that we can expand on over and above what we've done before, and we'll piggyback just what Fred said. You know, I think before I start that, interestingly enough, Butch and I were visiting just a minute ago, and he said, "Steve, what do you do here?" Of course, that's a question Jerry asked me 5 months a week. And I said, well, Butch, I kind of look over things, and, if a student has a problem or a complaint, I listen to that. Faculty member has a problem or complaint, I listen to that. Parent has a problem, an administrator has a problem. He said, well, Steve, you're a service manager. He said, So I have a lot of affinity, I think, for what you guys do and the things you go through. But, I get to see this thing from a lot of different sides, and it's a real interesting concept. The Toyota program on our campus is probably not only the model program in the automotive department, but as far as I'm concerned, the model program on campus. There may be some people joining us here a little bit later from other departments. They want to know how this works because they want to implement it in their area, whether it be visual communication, drafting, you name it. They want to know what we're doing here and how we make this work. I think Toyota has the real key about how internships, co-op agreements, industry, education partnerships are supposed to work. You guys just need to know that because you need to be proud of the fact you're associated with that kind of company that has that level of commitment and expertise in this kind of thing. Let me just add to a couple things about what Fred said. Oklahoma is in a unique situation in being able to target recruit in certain areas. We have the premier area vocational technical school system in the country. There's none better. And they're everywhere in Oklahoma. And last count that I saw, there were something like 40 schools that had automotive programs of one kind or another. And yes, as Terry said, some of the high school programs are going away, but those students are then just going over into the area vocational technical schools and picking up on that kind of automotive education. I've talked to most of you, and many of you are on advisory boards at area vocational technical schools. And if you're not on that kind of board, you should get on that kind of board. Because those people do an excellent job in preparing those students to come to this kind of campus. They have good facilities, they have good equipment, they have good instructors, they have administrators that understand how all these programs work. So if you're not tied in there yet, you need to tie in. And buddy, I really hope that sometime during the day we can hear a little bit from you because you know how these things work. You know the direction next school is heading, some other programs that are coming out that you might just share with us how we can all get involved in that. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're sure welcome to add some comments if you'd like. Okay. And remember also what Terry said earlier, the word vocational, is sometimes a bad word to everybody. I think I have probably 2 thoughts on that. Think about an English class. Is that vocational class? Sure it is. How about a speech class? Is that preparing somebody for a vocation? Sure it is. Everything we do in education, the bottom line is vocational. So there's nothing wrong with that word, but it does have a connotation that sometimes is not so positive. Hence, we now have the Tulsa Technology Center, okay, instead of the southeast campus of the area vocational technical school. And so people are picking up on it. But everything we do in one way or another is vocational. Probably your primary source to get some good qualified students into the T10 program would be your local area vocational technical school. Now, where are some other sources? Some of the people are using individuals that come in and apply for jobs. Whether you have an opening or not, occasionally you'll get people coming in just looking for work. They'll sit down and do a little mini interview with them. And if this person looks like someone who has that potential of being a good technician, they simply call Jerry or call Fred or call me and refer that student to us. And we'll get together with them, talk to them about the program, how it works, what it takes to get in, what's available when they graduate. So you have a source right now that maybe you're not aware of. Maybe you don't think of that as when that person comes in, you look them over, you say, no, not qualified. Maybe not qualified today, but do they have the potential to become qualified? And if they do, then we can help them. So look at them as a source, as a candidate. The other thing that works reasonably well, believe it or not, is simply a little tag either on your existing ad in the paper or maybe a separate, just small little ad under the classified section. We have another program on campus with a manufacturer, automotive manufacturer. And one of the ways we recruited for that was to put an ad no bigger than that in papers all across the state. Got 264 phone calls from people that wanted to be part of that program. That worked? Sure. Was it expensive? No, it wasn't. Did it give us a lot of people to talk to? You bet. And so even if you don't have that close tie with a vocational school, or if for whatever reason you can't work something out there with the right students, you have the other opportunity of recruiting your own. Will it take a little bit of your time? Yes, it might. Is it worth it? I think so. I think the people who have had T-TIP students probably think so. And so very small, simple little things like that are readily available to you at a relatively low cost with at least some degree of success. So really, I guess what I'm saying is when it comes to target recruiting, don't rule out anything. Remember, the secret to target recruiting is that that person comes from your area. And the reason you want them to come from your area is so they come back to your area when you're done. This school is one of 2 schools in the state that have a statewide mission of recruiting. The other is our sister campus in Oklahoma City. And so if you look at our demographics, there's 77 counties in Oklahoma. We have students from, guess what, 77 counties. So we can get students here. The trick sometimes is getting a student from Tulsa now to go to Sallisaw or to Pullman or somewhere else, you know. They tend to want to gravitate back to where they came from. Hence, we're talking about target recruiting. Because target recruiting takes the person from that area, puts them back in that area again, where they most likely want to be in. Okay? So that's a real important function. Just, do you have any, just off the top of your head, questions on target recruitment before we talk about money in terms of scholarships? You'll probably have some as we go along. Buddy, is there anything you want to add about how you and Alan might work together?
Yeah, we, at the Tulsa Technology Center, we're going to have automotive at 2 different locations now instead of 3, and that will be at Glenwood campus and Southeast. And Southeast, to represent the whole district, we have designated a half a day for one of our instructors, Mr. King Kirkpatrick, to work with this intern automotive shift. We want our students to be able to move from the theory that they're receiving in the classroom, the lab work they're receiving in the lab, to the stark reality of being in the shop and working with the individuals and the master technicians. So during the students' 1 to 2 year period that they are there, during some form, hopefully a minimum of 2 weeks and a maximum of a month, that they're able to go out and work in a dealership and find out, exactly what goes on, because that helps the student learn what occupational field they want to go into, and to know, do I really want to go into this? This also helps the dealership if they don't employ a guy and that person becomes a casualty, because that's really not what the student wanted to do. And then the spin-off of that, if they decide that they do not want to be a technician, at that point in time they can reroute and become some other area that they may want to work in the automotive field. And we will initiate that next fall. We're in process now of getting all the design of it, and Gene Kirkpatrick will work. We're planning to do work this summer, and we'll have that ready to go by next fall. So if there's a great automotive transmission guy shows up at your door and he says, "Hi, I'm Gene Kirkpatrick," you'll know what he's there. He's not to buy a car, he's there to try to place some of these students in a role of internship for 2 to 4 weeks. And that way we feel like they're going to benefit the student and the industry. If you have any questions about it, we're fully certified, ASC certified in 7 of the 8 areas. Our secondary program a year ago was 3rd in the nation, and we've got quality of program with NATEC. So we're trying to make tracks toward becoming a premier school.
The program that Buddy's talking about is called School of Work. And there, matter of fact, it's a form of internships beginning as early as the 10th grade. Is that right?
No, it could if we have if there are 1 or 2 but more than likely it'll happen at the 11th grade level.
And I think the nice part about that, there's going to be encouragement in a lot of ways. A lot of federal dollars floating around right now for programs like this. So
let me add this, in the program, a student that leaves Tulsa Technology Center, they will come in and they take a core automotive class to try to give that student a total breakdown of the automotive system. And then their second semester, they receive one full semester of automotive electricity. And from what we've been able to find out, everything hinges around the electrical works of an automobile. So they're going to have a full semester. And after they have spent 1 year there, then they will be able to choose the area of specialty that they want to go into. But our instructors feel like that the most necessary thing that they understand is the electrical flow within the automobile. So that's important.
The early work experience, I think, is designed to give the student a feel, as Buddy said, for what the industry is really all about. But then it also gives you a feel for what the student might be all about. And you'll have some options of being able to continue him if you want, or you could say, oh, wait a minute, I think you have some potential. Maybe you need to be part of the T10 program. Let me encourage you then to go and seek that out. And so there's going to be lots of options in that program. You just need to know that one of the options is for you kind of to look at that student first. If you think there's some potential, have him come down. Let us continue his education for him. Let him come back to you then when he's trained for the last internships that Jerry offers, and then full-time employment for that student. So,
You use the term, I want to go to them, not to be a car jockey. You know, that's what we're trying to instill in our students. When you leave there, you want to be called and represented as a automotive technician. You know, so in our internship, as we work with industry, we want to give these people an opportunity to get involved in what's going on the floor. They already know how to ride.
any questions for Buddy or anything right now? I'm sorry. Buddy, thanks. Sure. Well, let's go to this big old folder and some of the pieces of literature that I put on the table. We'll hit several things in a row here. Now, anything that I show you today is available in whatever quantity you want it to be available in. So this is just a sample for you. This little flyer here, we find that some people will put in their customer waiting areas, sometimes in the showroom, sometimes in the parts department on the counters, a variety of places. You may even know some related businesses where you have friends and relatives working, you can take a supply of these and leave them. This is just nothing more than an information piece that talks real lightly about what happens here at the college. And should a person then want more information, there's a little card here that tears out. They can fill that out, send it in, and we'll send them back even more detailed information. Maybe call them, invite them to campus. This might be what we would call a search piece. So again, however you want to use that, this is just kind of to whet their appetite, get the hook set, and then let us get involved in helping you. The real secret here, as I think Terry alluded to earlier, is that this is another form of the partnership. You know, he's right. We can't do all of this for all of the programs. We need your help to do this. But you need to know that once you make that effort, once you start identifying some of these people and just refer them to us, that's where we can really be beneficial to you. Because we know the programs, we know the facets of school and financial aid and all the other things that go involved in getting enrolled. We'll take over from there. We just need your help in identifying those students initially. And we'll do some things with them. So that's a search piece. This is the catalog, and in the catalog are all the programs we offer here. Of course, the automotive programs are in there. Two things about the catalog. One, when you get to the automotive programs, you'll see just a listing of courses, but then way in the back here is a paragraph, or at least a semi-paragraph explanation of what's in each one of those courses. So if you ever need to use the book, or if you're referring somebody to the book, it's a two-section kind of deal. Up front, list the classes, and the back tells you what's in the classes. And that's the way most college catalogs are laid out. This one is our view book. Now this one really gets down to the nitty-gritty of things. So when people again start asking you particular questions, again, we don't expect you to be experts. All we would like to do is to have you know where they could get some more information. Obviously, they can get here. There's toll-free numbers in all this literature, so they, or you can call toll-free, will help you. But if you want to give them something to read, this booklet, and particularly this section in the middle here that's kind of stapled in, there's some real valuable information in there. Turn to the section, and I think it's on page 5 of this insert, that says Student Financial Aid. And then in your folder, I've got this little laminated sheet. Take that out. We're going to kind of go over those together. The laminated sheet that says Student Financial Aid on it as well. You can see by looking at nothing more than either this sheet or that insert, there's a multitude of financial aid that's available to these students. When I go out and visit with students, one thing I say to them is, don't let money keep you from going to college. Boy, and they snicker and they grin, they look at each other and they, how in the world can you say that? You know, it costs money to go to college. That might be the thing that keeps me from going to college. And the reason I tell them that is because there are so many different kinds of financial aid programs available. You notice right under where it says student financial aid, it says based on need. That's the real secret. The greater the need the student has, the more financial aid they'll qualify for. Okay? The first grouping of financial aid there deals with grants, Pell Grants, Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grants, Oklahoma Tuition Aid Grant Program, grants. And I've just highlighted there what's involved in those grants. Let's just take Pell as one example. It's for undergraduates. That means people who are earning their initial degree, like an associate degree that we offer here. Okay? No payback. If you're entitled to a grant because of your financial need, you'll receive it and there's no payback. In this particular one, it could be up to $767 a semester. Well, our average tuition per semester is about $650. So just in this one grant alone, they could get their tuition covered. Okay? We've only talked about one. Look at all the rest that they could still qualify for. Anything that says grant is a no payback item. Okay? They make one application, and I think I put that in your book too. Looks like this. Okay? It's free. It doesn't cost them anything to apply for financial aid. So why not apply? What have you got to lose except a little time? That's all. They'll take some family information, send it in. 4 to 6 weeks later, they'll get that information back. There's even a place for them to check if they want us to get a copy. We'll get the information back. And then we know exactly what they're going to qualify for. And then we, in essence, personalize a package for that student. We put together a package just for that student. Very seldom are two packages the same. Okay? Because everybody's need is different. So some amount of money will probably come from that Pell Grant up to $767 a semester. Well, then just kind of tick off the grants. You can kind of read those over. Again, the bullets there are just the highlights. So I've laminated it so you can use it again. Because very little of that will actually change. Then come down to where it says Federal Work Study Program. Again, it's given to students based on their financial need. If their need is such, they could qualify for work study right here on our campus. They could even work in our department. Okay? They could earn up to $950 a semester working here on the college campus. Well, the room and board, typical room and board, I'll show you where to find that in a minute in the book, is about $1,100, $1,200 a semester. Well, if they're on work study, they've got $950 of that covered just in that one program. Are beginning to get the feeling that maybe the expenses aren't so great, and maybe they can be covered. That's really what I want to eventually lead you with, is to let you know that there's lots of dollars available to help students go to college now. And in just these two that we single out right now, we've got tuition covered, and we've got over 3/4 of room and board covered, don't we? And there's many more things that they can qualify for. Now come down to the section that says loans. There's a Perkins loan, Stafford loan, Plus loan, SLS loan, emergency loan. Loans are readily available. Okay? Now, when a student applies for financial aid, they will get their package back, and their package will typically say you qualify for usually a combination of most of those things. Now, just because a student qualifies for a loan doesn't mean he has to take it. You know, there are people that just don't want loans, don't want to be paying back things after school. That's fine. It's only put in there in case they want it available to them. So if they get a loan, you can see that loans do require obviously paybacks, and I've kind of put the payback time frames in there so you get some feel for that as well. Typically though, those loans don't have to be paid back until the student leaves the institution, either graduates, decides not to go anymore, or becomes less than a full-time student. So there's always some time there, hopefully for graduation, to begin employment, to start earning money before they're going to ask them to pay the full back. Okay. If you notice under the plus loan there, there's even a loan for parents. Mom and dad can apply for some money because their value amount will go up and they'll need to pay for that. Okay. But even parents can qualify for a loan. Students can qualify individually for a loan as well. And look at the dollar amounts there. Anywhere from $500 to $1,300 a semester. More than enough to cover everybody. In our department, we have these emergency loans. If you get a student who's on financial aid, for some reason that money didn't come in, he needs to buy some books or some tools, he comes to us, we make him a loan. When his financial aid finally comes in, he can pay us off then. Okay? The Oklahoma Automobile Dealers Association has given us that money. And we have something like $10,000 just floating in that account. So never does a student come to us that we can't help him. We ask him to meet certain standards, though. He's got to have a good grade point, good attendance, and all that kind of stuff. We have to have some assurance that, you know, he's a reputable person who will pay us back. But if he is, and 98% are, then if he needs a loan, it's available to him right through our department. Are you okay on all that kind of financial aid right now? Okay, those things are laid out in just a little more detail on page 5 of this booklet. All I've done is try to highlight some of the things, but if you want to read more about them, just flip there to page 5. Now, while we're there, go right across the page to page 4, and you'll see something that says fees and tuition. That's the credit hour charge. Students pay for each credit hour they take here. We charge them $42.47. Out of state, $110. Interestingly enough, just so you know, especially guys from Texas, we do have an out-of-state fee waiver that students can qualify for. If they're a good student, 2.5 or better GPA, 18 or better ACT score, we will waive their out-of-state tuition and let them pay in-state tuition. So that, we hope, encourages better students. Steve, you're probably going to take advantage of that with that fellow coming up from Texas. Better students from out of state to be able to pay in-state tuition. That's what it amounts to. Okay? Now, I just did some real rough figuring here a while ago. In the total program, the students go through here to get their degree, tuition fees, room and board, et cetera, for a 2+ year period of time, between $13,000 and $15,000. Sounds like a lot of money, isn't it? It is a lot of money. But you know what? That's 1/4 of the actual cost. Because we're a state-sponsored school, the taxpayers of Oklahoma, most of you, are picking up the other 3/4 of that bill. So in terms of what the student pays and the kind of education they get, real bargain. It's a real bargain. And if you will compare our tuition rates with tuition rates of almost every other college, you'll see also a real bargain. And those of you who went to college and paid some of those rates, you know, can verify. Very reasonable to go to school here. Very reasonable room and board. All of our residence halls are paid for. We can house half of our student population in our residence halls. So we don't have to be raising our rates to pay back bond issues and things like that. All we have to do is keep them up, maintain them, and we do a good job. That's why our rates are so significant. Okay? So, yes, a good chunk of change, but when you compare it to things, it's pretty reasonable. And look at all the financial aid that's available to students to help. Okay? So don't let that be a roadblock. The last kind of financial aid we're going to talk about is on the bottom of your sheet here, and that's scholarships. And you notice that says based on performance. What were the others based on? Need. Okay. Now we have one based on performance. Here's what I do when I go out and talk to students, and you might want to do this as well. You talk to them. You tell them that the day you're there, talking to them, they're earning money to go to college. That very day. How are they doing that? By getting good grades, by being in class every day, by participating in the discussions, in the lab work, and doing a good job. They're earning money to come to college. And I tell them that I'd like to see the day when they graduate, when they do well, and they come to our school, and they look me right in the eye and say, give me the money that I've earned to come to your school, because I did a good job. I wish everyone would do that. And you need to give them a little motivation. The motivation, obviously, is the scholarship money that's available to them to attend here. Still in this book, and now we're kind of in the middle, you see where it says scholarship application. Find that page. Scholarship application. Just like there's one form to fill out for financial aid, there's one form to fill out for scholarships. And this is it. It doesn't cost anything to apply. No record-keeping fees or anything like that. Fill it out, send it in. Okay? Look on the back of that sheet now. That lists the primary scholarships that we have to offer. And if you notice, pretty substantial in a lot of cases. Sometimes all tuition paid for 6 semesters. Sometimes half tuition. Sometimes, well, I think as little as $250, all the way up to full ride, basically, in terms of tuition for all the while they're here. Now, what we do is we'll give them the best scholarship that they qualify for. They don't have to apply for each one of these. They apply one time on one form at no charge and receive the very best scholarship that they've earned. Pretty simple process. And they're doing it today. Because they're in some school today, they're earning money to go to college. And we hope they'll all take advantage of it. I think all of us would probably rather give money based on scholastic aptitude than need. We want them to do well. And if they do well, we're going to reward them. Okay? Fellas, that's basically the two kinds of money that are available. Financial aid based on need, scholarships based on aptitude. You have kind of a feeling that there is money available for people to go to college, and maybe it's not quite the roadblock that you thought it was. Please convey to the students you talk to that maybe it's not quite the roadblock they thought it was. Okay? Any questions on financial aid or scholarships? Okay. Fred, Jerry, anything you want to add to that? Do you want to talk later about T10 scholarship? Do you want me to do that now?
Go ahead right now.
T10 has their own program. Absolute dynamite. Again, another thing that makes this program really viable. T10 offers students scholarships to become part of the T10 program. Okay. Now, in our case, you know, if you look at our Toyota plan of study here, those first 5 semesters are typically in our mainstream program, and some students don't decide to go into Toyota until they get to their last 2 semesters. Well, right now, if that's the case, that's when the Toyota money kicks in. Okay? There may be a day coming when the student will walk in up front tomorrow and say, I want to be in T10 right now. Okay, enroll me. I think there may be a way where we can get that money to him a little early. But right now, it comes in when he enters the program. Most of those students enter the program when they get to those last 2 semesters. Because everybody goes through the first 5, no matter what program. Okay? Scholarship money in terms of tuition is available, and a scholarship in the form of tools is available. They complete the program, $1,500. Tools of their choice, basically. Another thing that Toyota has worked out with us, you know, there used to be a set tool set. You entered T10 and you completed, you were successful, you got this set. Okay, well, gee, these guys have been through 2 years of school. They've got tools. In a lot of cases, they had the same tools. Why duplicate them? Jerry went back to approached the Toyota and said, why don't you just give them $1,500 credit and a Snap-on catalog and say, have a good time? And that's basically what they've done. Makes sense, doesn't it? So now each student can tailor his tool scholarship the way that he wants to. Excellent program. Excellent program. In addition to that, there is special scholarship money available. Jerry has a real knack for tapping Toyota's pockets, I can assure you, from any level you can think of. And so if he has a student that's going out on an internship and needs money for deposits, he's got to rent an apartment somewhere, and he needs a phone deposit, electric deposit, gas deposit, Jerry's on the phone, calling somebody, saying, hey, can I get about $300 for deposits? Sure. There's enough little fund that's available. So the TTAM program is absolutely the most flexible and the most supportive, I think, of students in terms of dollars and cents of any program that we have. Again, part of the big picture, just want you to have that confidence that money is available to help students who are serious about being automotive service technicians, specifically Toyota automotive technicians. Jerry, anything you want to add?